Hey, it's Joe Sanok. And guess what? Our Level Up Week in March was a huge success. And we're so excited to bring it back from September 18th to 21st. Now, you might be asking, what's in it for me? Well, let me break down why this event is tailor made specifically for you. Are you a new therapist looking to start a practice? We've got insights tailored just for you, like the solo practice panel and Q&A. Maybe you're a seasoned professional wanting to grow a little bit. Learn from experts in the field on topics like growing a group practice and keys to successfully accepting insurance in your practice. Do you want to harness technology for your practice's advantages? Well, don't miss the 5 IT things you have to master. And that's just the beginning. We have over 20 webinars, all designed to help you level up your private practice no matter what stage you're at. Plus, it's all entirely free. So why Level Up Week? Because we provide you with practical, actionable strategies from top leaders in the field. You'll gain tools to elevate your practice, expand your knowledge, and engage with a community of like minded professionals. Don't let this opportunity slip by. Register now at practiceofthepractice.com/level up and take the next step in your private practice journey. I can't wait to see you there. This is the Practice of the Practice podcast with Joe Sanok, session number 903. I'm Joe Sanok, your host, and welcome to the Practice the Practice podcast. I am so excited for this series that we are doing that's going to be covering all the things we did in Level Up Week earlier this year. And this series is all about giving a spotlight to some amazing guests that we had. We wanted to make sure that you, if you missed it, were able to get this education. It's something that's been only available to our membership communities for the last 6 months or so. And now we are letting you have access to it if you didn't attend Level Up Week earlier in the year. Also, wanted to make sure that you know that on September 18th through September 21st, we have Level Up Week 2023. So make sure that you come to Level Up Week. We are going to have tons of amazing speakers, amazing panels on everything from starting your practice, starting a group practice, and growing a group practice, as well as things like passive income and really just leveling up in a new way in your private practice. So make sure you're on that interest list. You'll get all those dates and all those registrations emailed to you over at practiceofthepractice.com/level up. So without any further ado, let's dive into today's episode. Well, first, I want to just welcome you. You're taking time out of your day to do this, to be a part of this 90-minute panel. To our panelists, to the people listening, this is going to be interactive at times. Andrew's going to be leading a lot of questions. We want this to be super valuable for you for whatever phase of practice you're in, to just hear from people that have been through this process rather recently. And they can say, hey, here's the pitfalls to avoid. Here's the hacks I learned. Here's the times I fell on my face, all those sorts of things. So I'm Joe Sanok, and I'm the founder of Practice the Practice. If I haven't met you, hello. I get to help lots of therapists with our team to grow thriving practices that they absolutely love. I also get to be a dad of 2 amazing daughters, and we have lots of time playing and having fun, and it's fun to watch them grow up. Dana was just telling me that her daughter, who I've known since she gave up her pacifier to the pacifier fairy, which we stole that idea, now is driving. Dana, how is Hazel already driving? That's insane.
It's
Dana's one of our
terrifying.
accountants. I bet she is more cognizant than most 16-year-olds.
She is. She's pretty on top of it.
That's amazing. Well, we have an amazing panel here today of people that have started solo practices. We have Brian, Mark, Andrew, Nadine, and Anne. And we're just so excited to have all of you here today. Andrew, thanks so much. Andrew's one of our Practice the Practice consultants. He's been super involved. He's going to be hosting this panel, and I'm going to just watch and learn with you all, unless you have me jump in. And then probably about 20 minutes before the end, we're going to pause the panel. I'm going to walk you through just some of our communities and a little information about that. And then we'll do some final Q&A in the last 15 minutes. And I'm going to let Andrew kind of kick this off for us.
All right, so hi everybody. Thanks for coming in. it's midweek. I don't know about you. If you're new to private practice or whatever, I kind of like my midweek like to be a little slower, but it doesn't ever seem to like it works out that way. It's where all the admin stuff seems to crash in. Um, but I started setting up like private practice, I guess, in 2019, and then kind of jumped in 2020, kind of right before the pandemic, and then had to learn a whole bunch of things about telehealth on the fly, like right at the start, right as I was getting paneled and things. And came across like the next level practice community, I guess, about the following year. And that got to be really helpful just in terms of like having a community of people to bounce ideas off of and just kind of discuss like what kind of struggles and challenges and other things and problem solving kind of stuff that other people have already had to deal with. I know some people often feel like being in private practice, and I kind of felt this way in some of the agency settings I worked in too. Like it's a very isolating kind of profession. And how do you stay sane and not just get sucked in and feel like you're this weird fly on the wall that just observes the world and comments on it? So next level practice, great community. It's how I met Mark. We were like NLP buddies for quite a while. I think I've met Brian Cooper in a couple different rooms and other things too. Dana's a fantastic support in terms of just giving a lot of encouragement and kind of like tying in kind of what the rest of the community is like doing. I haven't met the rest of the panel. I think I met Ian briefly a little while ago. But yeah, just in short, like I think people kind of jump in, and then as you kind of like realize how you're flying and kind of decide what you need to do, then it's like, how do I then finish building out the plane so it works? And that's where having that community support, lots of resources and other people to bounce stuff off of kind of comes into play. So I don't have like a super big list of questions, but just maybe to start off with, if the people on the panel want to like kind of introduce who they are and how they ended up here and what their connection to Joe is, that would be a good place to start.
Yeah, I'm happy to go first. Hey, I'm Ann. I am a marriage and family therapist in Charlotte, North Carolina. I work primarily with couples, some adult individuals working on attachment issues. I'm a level 3 Gottman trained therapist, in addition to having gone through their infidelity and trauma and addiction trainings, as well as their 7 principles workshop. So I do some of those as well. So I have been with practice since last fall, and I came into it because I have a therapist friend I kept going to and saying, "Hey, can you answer this question for me?" And finally she said, "Do you not listen to this show?" And I said, "No." She goes, "You've got to go do this." And I started listening to it. One thing led to another, and found myself talking with Dana one day, and here we are after all of this.
I'll jump in here. Thank you, Ian, and nice to meet you digitally. So my name is Mark Strubler. I live in Southeast Michigan, about 45 minutes north of Detroit, and I mainly work with men and helping them, work through kind of the lasting wounds of trauma and helping them put words and feelings to that so that they can move toward being more comprehensive men. And just have some EMDR training, certified in that, consultant in training. So if anybody needs an EMDR consultant, I can provide 15 of the 20 hours that you need for that. But I first found Joe because I had been at a group practice and, it was very supportive, but I started seeing how much, I was bringing in, and then I was seeing, oh, goodbye, 30 to 40%, whatever it was at the time. And I like math, I like numbers, I like, keeping track of my schedule and optimizing things. And I was like, I could probably do this on my own, maybe a little bit better, and, create some more space in my life. So I'd been listening to Joe's podcast, and I think he had some kind of, maybe it was Level Up Week, but more in the fall. And he had a new cohort starting for next level practice. So I signed up, and kind of like how you were saying, Anne, the rest is history. And I've just really seen my practice go from, kind of petering along, and feeling probably a little depressed about it, to feeling very confident in the direction it's going. So yeah, that's kind of my little bit there.
All right. So, hey, everyone, I'm Brian Cooper. I also am a Michigander. So we've got a plethora of Michiganders on this call today. I have a private practice in Rochester, Michigan, which is a little bit north of Detroit, kind of like Mark said. I work with couples primarily, so I'm Gottman level 2 trained, and I also do EMDR therapy with individuals. So my certain kind of niche is I kind of zoned in on interracial and multicultural couples counseling and some of the dynamics that can go on with that. I found Next Level Practice through the podcast. As I was going through graduate school, I wanted to jump right into private practice. So I was trying to think ahead of it and look for resources. And I came upon Practice of the Practice, the podcast, and started listening to it. And I jumped on, I think, a informational call with Practice of the Practice in fall of 2021, I think it was. And I thought it was going to be kind of a more of a sales pitch, and it wasn't. It was literally me, another one of my cohort members, Claudia, and we got all access to Joe for like an hour. And he answered our questions and gave us some coaching. And it was kind of like everyone else said, that was the beginning. The rest is history. So join Next Level Practice, and it's been a huge benefit and resource for me. I really want to speak to something that Andrew said, the community that it provides. I am friends with Mark, but I've gotten to know Nadine and become really good friends with her. I've gotten to know Dana, become really good friends with her. And it has provided community in an industry and a job that can be very, very kind of insular and very singular. So that's the thing that's been one of the biggest benefits for me.
So my name is Nadine Bizicchio, and I am a licensed professional counselor in New Jersey. And I, too, focus on helping couples. I'm a level 3 trained Gottman therapist, and I am currently in the process of completing the Gottman certification track to become a fully certified Gottman therapist. And so I do encourage Brian and Ann to come join me. But it is quite the process, and I am enjoying it. I'm also an EMDR therapist for individuals, which I do enjoy as well. And I found Joe because I was searching for information in Facebook groups and all sorts of different any way I could, because like everyone else has said, it's a very insular world. And I knew during COVID, I, like many people, wanted to make a lot of changes. And so I embarked on starting a private practice. I had no idea what I was doing, but I was building the plane as I flew, if you will, which I'm still doing. And so I found Joe. He was giving a lot of great advice. I found Next Level Practice, and I joined without hesitation, with a lot of support from my husband, because I really wanted that community, and I just haven't looked back. And I went from having a website and one client, and like Mark said, it was very depressing for a moment. And then I just did everything Joe said to do, and all of a sudden I boomed, and I have this thriving private practice, to the point where it can be overwhelming at times, where I don't know how I'm even going to call people back or where I can fit them on my caseload. And now here I am. And I've met so many people, and I've gotten to know and become friends with Brian. And I love the group that I meet with every 2 weeks, and they're an amazing support. And I can't say enough about this community, and it's been wonderful.
Well, cool. Well, thanks everyone for the intro. I forgot to include, I live out in Western North Carolina, so Ann and I are relatively close together, but it's cool to have a couple of Michigan people and a couple of North Carolina people on the panel at the same time. And I relate to what Brian was saying about discovering the podcast in grad school, and then that kind of like planting seeds and just kind of given a lot of really good information and ingredients to start thinking about getting started and other things. And also that level of encouragement of just, it's not this kind of unobtainium to kind of borrow from like the comic book world of stuff, of like, it's, doing your own thing for yourself is something that can be done. It just takes a lot of patience. And I kind of like to say, like, it's like connecting a string of like 1,000 paper clips together. Like there's just so many little details you kind of have to like get lined up to do it. So on my little question sheet that I was kind of jotting down ahead of this panel was, you know, Brian kind of touched on this about kind of jumping right into private practice. I plan to spend some time at some agency stuff to kind of get the private practice going to then be supportive enough to then leave, but kind of left agency stuff, at least where I was at, because it just was really not a good fit. And Mark kind of mentioned being group and just kind of looking at like numbers and just kind of feeling like, from an entrepreneurial standpoint, I think I can kind of manage some of the rest of the numbers and the business side of stuff. So Nadine and Anne, how did you all end up kind of coming into solo practice? What's your story there?
Okay. So I had been working in a variety of settings for quite a while. And then I was working predominantly in a school setting with adolescents. And again, during COVID, I really had a reevaluation of things that were going on. And I knew that I wanted to have more. I wanted to really, have a change in my schedule. And I also wanted to be helping a different population of people. And I had noticed that working with that group, that population, that I really wanted to focus more on helping their parents, because there was a lot of issues going on there, that if I could get to the parents, it would benefit the kids. So I wanted to make that change in the population that I was working with. So I knew that also meant getting out of the school. And that became a big thing. So I embarked on more training. And then I knew that I needed to figure out how to make that switch. I needed to figure out the systems I needed to put in place. I had no idea how to do it. So I just started to gain, I was voracious for knowledge. So I was looking in any place I could to find out and figure out the systems I needed. And then that's how I found Joe. But I knew that after working in all of these various settings, I had worked in a prison for a while. I had worked in a hospital setting for a while and working in the school for a while. I knew that working in another setting, even a group practice, I knew that absolutely wasn't what I wanted at all. I knew that I wanted to have my own practice. I wanted to work for myself. I wanted to be able to create the systems in place that I knew would be beneficial for my clientele, to see the population of people I wanted to really focus on and help. And so that I would be able to grow a practice in the vision that I had for the life that I wanted to live, for the population of people I wanted to serve, and that would best suit my family and how I kind of wanted to move forward.
Okay. Wow. That's a lot to follow. Very inspirational. My story, this is actually my third career. I was originally a first grade teacher many, many years ago. And then I sold real estate for about 20 years and kind of had this moment when my child went off to college, and it's like, really need to figure out what I'm going to do for myself with my life. And went to school, received my MFT and LCAS, and kind of went out and thought group practice was going to be the way to go, because I really like being around people. I like the sharing of ideas, the camaraderie, all of that, and just found that really, after having been independent in my other careers, so much, that it wasn't always the right fit. And so I'm like, okay, it's time. I just need to go just give this everything that I have to give it. Kind of like, this is hopefully my last career, is my intention at this point in my life, and to just, have that moment of, I have given this everything I have to give it, and let's see what I'm really made of with that. And so that was about 14 months ago, and went out and, got office space and started seeing clients, and just every day is just a learning opportunity. I was telling somebody one time that every day I wake up as one person, I go to bed as someone different, because I have learned so much. Brian's nodding his head. I love spending time with Brian. He's so wonderful. But either I'm learning things from my client, I'm learning things about myself. I mean, there is so much to do And a very sequential person like me, was tremendously challenging because I kept trying to get all my little ducks in a row, and I'm going to do this one, and then I'm going to do this one, and it just doesn't work like that. There are a lot of time in the beginning, you're just trying to keep things going from one day to the next. And slowly but surely, it does start to take on a shape and a sense of organization and a flow and that sort of thing. But it's a marvelous, marvelous experience. And, I feel incredibly lucky I love what I do. I love my boss, but thanks, Brian, for laughing. But yeah, it's a tremendous experience. All that.
So I'm curious, like, was there a moment to where it was clear, like, private practice was the direction you were going to head? Like for me, it was just, I knew that was kind of where I was headed. I kind of wanted to journey a little bit in some other settings along the way, and just realized, like, I couldn't put up with the dysfunction. It's pretty common with agency settings and other things. And at the time, there wasn't a huge, unlike now in ASHA, where there's a whole bunch of group practices that have kind of gotten started in the past 3 or 4 years. Like, there really weren't a lot of groups to go join in terms of joining a group private practice. So I'm curious, for each of you, was there a particular kind of, you know, catalyst, like, moment that kind of kicked you off for doing private practice?
Yeah, I think for me, it was not a one particular moment, but it was a series of moments. I learned from my years of selling real estate and having, the market, how it has been over the years with, bringing clients in and they're losing homes to multiple offers and things like that. But this idea that, when you keep banging your head against the wall, it's time to turn around and go in another direction. And I found myself doing that, going, this is just, I keep trying to make this work. And why am I not doing this? And in that moment of recognizing that I was the one getting in my own way, that it was my fear that I needed to lean into and to address to be able to do this. And I did. And I just, like, okay, this is it. Last career, we're done. It's now or never. And all those moments in life where I had not done what I had really truly wanted to do because of that fear. And I'm like, this is it. And I have not looked back. It has been the most freeing experience to go and to address that fear, to lean into it, to learn and grow, and to not let it control me anymore.
So, that fear, I know there's something that I'm even working through. I know Brian knows. And so Dana knows. So, but and that's such a real fear, because it is something that can really control the avenue and the path that you take. But it is, it is very real to hold ourselves back from moving forward, from moving out of that setting that we're in, that, that group setting or whatever it is, from taking that leap and pushing ourselves to go into that solo practice that we want to start, or whatever it is that we want to be moving towards, because it is, it's that unknown. It's whatever it is that we're afraid of, the potential risk. But really what I'm starting to recognize, and Anne, what you've recognized, is that the benefits far outweigh whatever risks there are.
Yeah. And I think, Nadine, at least for me, in looking at the moments in my life that brought me into this field, to look at a solo practice and go, oh my gosh, what is the absolute worst thing that can happen? I fail. The lights get shut off, or, I don't have money for groceries one month or something like that. That, in comparison to these other places in my life that I have made it through the other side, it's kind of like, I can do this. I can do this. And it was fear of failure, but also fear of, do I truly believe in myself?
Yeah. And the thing is that, I forgot who it was that said it, but this I had listened to recently, and it's something that's really resonating with me. Recently, is that, you can fail at something you hate.
Mm-hmm.
So why not fail at something you love.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And also this idea of, if I fail, it means that I have learned exactly where my limit is. And I learned this from a coach at the gym a couple many years ago, that they were doing a push-up challenge one day. Dana's laughing at me. They were doing a push-up challenge one day, and he's like, "Well, how many do you think you can do?" I was like, "Oh, 10." He goes, "Okay." And I got to 10. He goes, do 10 more. And I kept going and kept going and kept going. And I didn't fail until I got to 37.
Mm-hmm.
And that gap, I'm not bragging doing 37 because they were not beautiful push-ups by any means whatsoever. But the gap is what stuck with me. I thought I was going to fail at this low, maybe even single digits number, and I made it up to here. How, if I'm underestimating myself to that degree in that particular area, how is that showing up in other places in my life? So that's part of this. What has stuck with me about this is that underestimating ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
I really resonate with what you're both saying, Nadine and Ann. I was at the group practice in April of 2020, about a month and a half after everything got real fun for everybody. I got my first client on my own, outside of the group, and I let them know I was doing this, and I was very clear, like, I'm not going to, dip from clients that are coming into the practice, and putting them into my own private practice. So I was very good in that regard. But over that year, I started to build up, and even though it wasn't a crazy amount of money, my confidence was slowly building. And then there's this moment when I got an email from the business manager who said, "Oh, we're gonna drop your split. We're gonna, as in, like, we're going to give you less money. It's going to go from this percentage to this." And that was, pretty out of nowhere. And it was just kind of like, too bad, so sad. Now, at this point, I was like, okay, here's how it really goes here. So at that moment, I was able to work out, like, I'm going to keep, my percentage for a little bit more. So we were able to work it out. But it was at that moment where I basically decided, let's just go full bore at this. So it was shortly after that fun email I got that I put in my 2-month notice, just to give, enough time, and then dove into the full solo private practice realm. In that first year, this was pre-Joe, by the way, and NLP and all that. It was hard, but there was still growth during that time. And I think I needed that. But, like you were saying, Ann and Nadine, leaning into the fear, and staying with it, not giving up, that's what kind of drove me into, like, how can I think about this differently?
Mm-hmm.
And, it led me to NLP. And I'm going to jump ahead a little bit, but there was even a moment when we were doing a What's Working with Joe. And I think Joe and I talk about this often, where, I forget where my rate was. And he gave me this rate that I thought was, in my mind, crazy. Oh, he's coming back. And
I remember that day.
Yes. And it was a huge jump. It was like $35 an hour jump. And I physically just felt sick. And he's telling me this, like, go for this rate. And I was like, there's no way, because we're taught, like, hey, we're helpers, we help people, and, you don't overcharge and all that. Mm-hmm. But, there's the other side of it too, where it's like, when we feel like we're making, the level of presence and the expertise that we're bringing, to the table, that can help us, in becoming better practitioners. So reluctantly, help make that easier. Yes, that is for sure. So I was like, okay. He said, for the next 5 people, give them this rate, see what happens. And I think three or four out of the five people all said yes to this rate, which blew my mind. And I still get people at that rate. And so now I feel like I can jump it even higher when I do a rate hike every year, for my private pay folks. So I feel good about jumping it up again, in September. But it was through leaning into that fear and, trusting the process, trusting, Joe and the community, and everybody. Like Dana was so like, you can do it, Mark. Every call, she was just like, you can do it. How many people did you ask? And I'm always crying to Brian about it over coffee because we always get coffee together, which is awesome. He's like, you can do it, man. Of course, he's being a great counselor too and saying, what are you feeling as you're going through this? So yeah, it was just so encouraging. But it was like you were saying, Nadine, leaning into that fear, sitting with the uncomfortable feelings, like what we ask of our clients, that allowed me to push that further. So with that, I will pause.
Yeah, and Mark, that what you were saying brought to mind to me that idea again, what we do with our clients, that storming, norming, performing. That first year, it's like, yeah, you're just sometimes just hanging on by the seat of your pants. Where do I set my rates? Can I actually make that ask? Can I just say this? Do I have that confidence? Do I have that belief in myself that I'm worth that? And then you kind of the second year start to settle in. Yeah, I can actually do this. This is working. I've got some good things going on. And then that third year, really just letting yourself lean into who is my niche client, what floats my boat with this, what additional trainings do I want to do, or the Gottman certification, things like that. What are my goals in this? And then how will they affect the practice? And, I think things like that always affect the practice in a positive way. I apologize. They've just got a leaf blower going outside of my windows right now. But when it affects us in a positive way and we see ourselves differently and with more confidence and capability, that translates into better results with our clients as well. So.
Yeah, thanks everyone. I wanted to kind of chime in on and circle back on a couple of things. Like that fear is that definite imposter syndrome. Like, am I good enough to do this? And that seems like an ongoing, probably number one issue as therapists, regardless of what setting we're in. Anna and Dean were talking about that feeling of like, in a sense, putting all your eggs in one basket. And I kind of maybe had the opposite view when I was looking at like, so I'm going to go work full time somewhere else. And I'm entrusting my entire livelihood on this other company in this one place. And I might be seeing how many clients I'm seeing over there, like as part of that setting, but it's only one job versus like if you, once you kind of settle into like private practice and kind of have that caseload mix of like your weekly and your biweekly kind of people, it's like you might have like a kind of a mass graduation of a bunch of people kind of wrapping up therapy, other things. But in a way, as a business, you could almost look at each one of those clients as like its own stream of income. So that kind of like it's more than just one egg, I guess, is it. And it's not to like commodify like our clients, but to me, there's just a bit more reassurance knowing if I needed to like dial in and maybe expand my niche a little bit this way, or like kind of bring in this other thing or talk to a different panel. It's different if you end up going down the insurance paneling route. Something we can talk about in a minute, but where you might have a single payer like Blue Cross, for example, that's 90% of your income, and then you are kind of like that one egg basket kind of thing. And then the last thing kind of out of this discussion that sticks with me is like I got the same kind of through grad school, like go to your community mental health, like we're in a sense martyrs. And it's like, well, martyrs don't have to worry about paying bills. Like we're humans. Like Verizon wants its, cell phone bill at the end of the month, right? So when you really look at the value added for the people that show up and stick with therapy, like we're literally helping them reclaim like their life and kind of transcend survival mode. So it's really hard to put a price on that. And I do appreciate, that willingness to kind of meet the client where they're at financially, but at the same time, like there's no reason why we should starve to death, right? So insurance, like let's talk about insurance since that kind of came up on my little rant. If you're on the panel, raise your hand if you take insurance. All right, so only got just Mark and I. Wow. Okay then. Quickly, and I'll. Oh, I guess Catherine's raising her hand because I guess she's got insurance too. But yeah, basically, couples for Anne and Nadine, especially, like couples is not a billable thing. So I very much understand declining insurance there. I've had that conversation with a lot of people, including my own clients, about it's going to be hard to find somebody that's going to take Blue Cross if you're in couples. And then if you are going to bill family, like oftentimes it's depressingly low how much they'll reimburse for like a family code and stuff. But yeah, Mark, how did you kind of come to decide to take insurance?
Sure. Well, I was getting some good traction with the private pay, but maybe it's the area I'm in. It could be a number of factors. Marketing. I'm more old school in marketing, and this is something I like to talk about a lot. It's more relational. So, like Brian and I, like I mentioned earlier, like my kind of networking is let's get coffee, let's really get to know each other, let's spend time together, and where other people may be really good at like the online marketing and going to doctors' offices and so on and so forth. So it's just maybe it's my approach and what that brings up, but I just decided I wanted to supplement all those open spots and really fill all those hours because I have two children that are in school and I drop them off and I have 6 hours, in between there. And I want to fill, 5 days a week, 6 hours, 30 total hours. So I just thought it would be a great way to supplement, private pay. So that was the deciding factor.
For me, there was kind of that little bit of Robin Hood kind of spirit to it, just in terms of, if providers don't bill insurance and insist that they kind of or advocate for clients to kind of receive benefits that they're paying subscription fees for, like they kind of get away with some, just taking people's money basically. And at least in my area, there's a vast number of people that would have my services or any other types of services pretty much inaccessible due to like cost and out of pocket cost, or even just out of pocket to wait for out of network reimbursement would be cost prohibitive for them. So I guess in a way, part of my spirit toward taking insurance is just trying to like make it as accessible as possible. And several other like group practice owners in my area and private practice owners have had that. We take insurance out of values, not that we feel like they value us as much as the clients value the ability to use it. If that makes sense.
That does,
Brian, yeah. Brian, I can't remember if you work with couples or not. Do you see individuals? And if so, like what was the decision about not taking insurance?
Yeah. So I think for me, I know who I really want to work with. I like working with individuals, and that's fine, but I really love working with couples. And so as I was getting this started, I wanted to think, okay, well, what's the best way for me to get to do that? And so for me, it was finding a way to make myself accessible in the area that I'm in, but also understanding the area that I'm in. So my area is a little more of a high affluent area, and that led itself to be able to do that. But like you said, when it comes to insurance, working with couples is really tough. And so if I know that's what I want my end goal to be, I'm going to set myself up to do that more than anything else. So that was the biggest, probably main factor for me.
I will add that breaking up with an insurance company seems to take just as long most of the time as getting on a panel. If anyone out there is attending that's thinking about insurance stuff, it's my best recommendation to anybody is to just get a biller, handle all of it. That was the best investment I made last year, is to have somebody else where I just send in a spreadsheet of here's who I saw and I get paid and they deal with all the rest. I'm so thankful for that, and they're worth probably double what I pay them, but I'm glad they only charge me too. Mark, it looks like you've got some similar thoughts on that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, maybe they're just a little opposite, but you're also running a group and starting that up. So there's value in that for you because you only have so much time. And I think because I'm focused solely on solo practice, I do all my own billing. So I use, my EMR system. I was able to get that set up with I think it was Change Healthcare, which is the clearinghouse, and get all the ERA things coming through and learning how that all works. Like, oh, you can use this modifier, but you can't use that modifier. And learning the hard way for many months in early 2022. And you have like $10,000 you're waiting to get paid. You learn, it's quite a motivator when you have that amount of money just sitting there to learn how this works. So I did have a little bit of exposure to that in the group, but the whole billing process, I think that's been quite a thing to learn as well. But, at this time, it makes sense for me just with the number of people I see and, not having a group like yourself that you're trying to manage as well.
Honestly, though, like I got really lucky 2022 and didn't have anything outstanding. And then as stuff kind of started breaking at the end of 22 when I was still solo as a solo practice, I have a mini group for people that don't know. I have a little mini group practice with a couple of other people. That's an interesting experience in and of itself. But I honestly would stick with a biller even if I was just doing solo because it just the number of hours and the limited amount of stress of just like it's not my problem. I just wait for the check to clear.
There's definitely
come in.
Yeah, there's definitely a value to it. I think it's just more of a personal preference. Like if you're good with like I'm just going to dive into it, or if you're on that realm of I don't want to touch this, either way, I think it's right. So it's just a personal preference. Yeah.
Anne, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I had a little bit different experience when I first opened my practice. I had intended to take insurance. I had a lot of folks telling me, "Oh, you've got to get on with this company or this company that's going to fill your books for you," and all of that sort of thing, and kind of played into that fear of, "Oh my gosh, I've got to have as many clients as I can coming in," even though most of my caseload now is couples. I do see individuals. I do some substance use and things like that. But I went back to that place of I tried 3 times to get on panels, and it was some of the most frustrating experience that I have had. I mean, you talk about banging your head against a wall trying to get things done. And the last straw for me is when one provider who had already done some approval things, comes back and says, "Oh, well, we need this number." And I'm like, "You have this number. It's in the email that you just sent me requesting the number, and it's right there in your email." And they kept saying, "But we don't have it." So I finally just went, "Okay, this is just the universe intervening and saying you are not supposed to do this." And it really, I think I've seen my friend Hannah on there today, talking about money fears. And it really got me looking at what is my fear in this. And my fear was that I'm not good enough to be solely private pay. And it forced me to face that fear. And it also forced me, Les McGowan, Dana, if you remember that time he came in and spoke, really starting the necessity of really looking at your numbers. You can't, this idea of owning the practice and not being okay with looking at the numbers is a tough spot. And I had to do that. And Les said in this Q&A that he was doing is you just have to make yourself sit down and do it. And he would do it. I think it was every Friday he would do it. And I made myself sit down and start doing that. And because of that, because of what I learned from Joe, I started budgeting differently, and I started working backwards from this. I want to make this much at the end of the year, which means I need to be making this much per quarter. And if I'm consistently billing full private pay, this many clients, and then I have a sliding scale with this many clients, and then I keep a couple slots open at no charge where I work with one of the local universities for the students they have in their MFT program. So if I'm consistently having this many full-time paying clients each week, what's my gap for the quarter? And that was a game changer for me, rather than in this mindset, I've got to get as many clients as I can, to look at, okay, what really is the gap? And it was, this couple $1,000s or whatever. Like, well, what can I do to fill that gap? And this starts to go into Joe and with the multiple streams of income and that sort of thing. And it was a wonderful growth opportunity because I started looking at, well, I can't afford to pay anybody else. What can I do? And that was where I started doing groups and doing workshops. And it really helped me to stretch myself, to view myself in a different way, that I'm capable of doing these things. And gosh, I love it. I mean, it's like, I feel like I've got so many different things going on within my practice. It takes off that pressure that I've got to have a certain number of clients. but it also takes off that pressure of I only do one type of thing every day. It's like, well, I've got some clients and then I'm teaching this group and I've got this workshop on a Saturday and it's very energizing for me. But that beginning to look at it differently, which all started with the insurance panels, just kind of going, this is not the route for you. You need to go explore something else and being open to that learning.
I'm encouraged what you're saying now, Ann, too. I'm like, ooh, I want to think a little more. Like maybe I should break up with one of my insurance panels. Thanks for sharing that. I'm encouraged.
And I thank you, Denisa, for your comment. If I could figure out how to write something in there, I would. But thank you. Appreciate that.
So numbers are definitely a big part of things. And yeah, like the money conversation, especially with yourself and what your value is really important. And I think having a couple different ways you look at numbers and a couple different metrics is really important. So one is, we all have kind of our limit of the number of people we can kind of see in a day or see in a week before we just are like fried and done. Um, and that's true depending on where on the introvert extrovert spectrum you are as well. Like for me, I'm like, I'm good up to 6 people. I can do 6 sessions, anything past 6. The guy, whoever's at the end is just getting gypped. And so I just don't schedule it. And I'm very clear with people. I'm like, technically I could, but I'm not going to be valuable to you. It's better if we just schedule a different day. And, like a full-time, like if I were just solo at this point and not having the additional kind of systems lens on like groups and stuff like that for making like some supporting some other clinicians, like I probably would be maxing out about around 22, 24 a week, at least currently in terms of total number of people, and could do that over 4 days. So 4 days on seeing clients, roughly up to 6 people a day, and having 3 days off. And you were talking about kind of having that bigger picture, kind of like, what do I want to make for the year and working backwards from that? And then am I meeting my like quarterly metrics and other things? And do I want to solely do that in terms of just the volume of client sessions that I do, or do I want something over here? Like, is it interesting to like, run a group and have a group session? Is it, something I want to go out and teach or consult or other things? And so I'm curious, like panel members, like where's your like max number of clients, and how is that kind of informed how you want to spend your time, because we only have so much time too. And I think I'm not alone in not wanting to work 60, 70-hour weeks.
Yeah. So I mean, I think about this often because I'm in the same situation as Anne. I do the same thing. I know how much I want to make in the year, and then I work backwards from there. But I also know that for myself, in my ideal situation, I really wouldn't want to see more than 12 clients a week. And I'm private pay. And so that is completely feasible to do because of the fact that I do have that bigger vision and bigger picture for wanting to run groups, wanting to do marriage intensives, wanting to do workshops, build courses, and start moving into other streams of income where I can take my time back, where I'm not necessarily doing one-to-one, but one-to-many. Because I'm answering the same questions every time I'm sitting in session. I'm doing the same things every time I'm sitting in session. Instead of doing this one-to-one, how can I take this bigger picture and do one-to-many, where it's a bit more predictable in my income, and I'm not relying necessarily on scheduling people where that person can cancel on me, where that person I could take a dip in my income if they cancel, or I have to really hustle to ensure that these people are coming in and scheduling, and then how long are they going to schedule for? And then I have a dip in a month where I can have that reliability and predictability in knowing that, okay, I've scheduled, this group is going to run for 8 to 10 weeks. And then I can do that X amount of times a year. And that's predictable, right? And so now I can factor that into my bigger picture in terms of my income for the year. And I could also do that with my workshops. I could do that with marriage intensives, and I can schedule those out. And so that's where I start thinking, okay, the one-to-one is great, but that for me, I know with my schedule, which is exhausting, is very, to me, that's going down the road to burnout. And I don't want to come home and give my family the worst of me. I want my family to have the best of me. I want my clients to have that great energy. So I know for me, like for clients, especially couples, because couples can be a lot in session. So, especially because I'm dealing with a lot of couples who are on the brink of divorce, there's a lot of high conflict couples that have come my way. So, I want to really focus on how, I can scale back on how many one-to-one I see and take it to a whole new level in my work where I can still make the income I want and still help the people I want in the best, most effective way possible. And with all the training and the amount of time that I'm putting into it, yeah, doing that money work, that is important because you're right. We do have this mentality that we shouldn't be charging our worth, but we're worth it. All of us are. We are very worth it because we are putting a lot of time and a lot of effort into giving people what they need. And we're here to serve them in the best possible way. And so, we want to be there for them so that we can help them achieve the best possible life, the best possible relationship so that they can. And it's a ripple effect because that ripples into their lives, their marriages, their children, their grandchildren, their futures. And that sounds worth it to me.
Real
Well
quick, in
said.
terms of worth, if you have a master's level license and you spent, roughly your 2 years in North Carolina, it's about another 3 to 4,000 hours to get fully licensed. Like by the time you get fully licensed, you've put in 10,000 hours worth of investment of your life. Like that's your lifespan hours. So forget the monetary value of what it costs to like do grad school and everything else. Like you've invested 10,000 hours of your life to be an expert in this field. And that's just getting started without having any of those additional trainings like EMDR and Gottman and other things. So yeah, like value matters. And I definitely relate to what Nadine was saying that like when you start adding in additional people that you're working with simultaneously, like my capacity to like do more of those hours diminishes pretty quickly.
I'll chime in on this because I think it may be helpful for some people in the audience. I do this part time. So I am the primary uh, provider, I guess you could say, for my family. And I have a 9 to 5 that provides the income for my family to live off of. And that's really important. So as much as I would love to do this full time, and trust me, I really would love that, I am trying to build that to a point that I can do it full time. So I see clients in the morning and in the evenings, and then I do my 9 to 5 during the day. So I think it also bears kind of saying in some cases there's a reality that we have to deal with. And then that's my case where, okay, I gotta provide for my family, but I'm still trying to move towards my goals. That's why something like next level practice was incredibly important to make sure I'm efficient with my time, to make sure I'm efficient and productive with the strategies or the techniques I'm using to gain more clients and network and market and all these kinds of things. But when it comes to my hours that I give to this, I give a lot of hours to this. And kind of back to the money conversation, that means, in my estimate, I'm worth that. I had a mentor tell me we give our clients advice that they might use literally for the rest of their life. It's very hard to put a monetary price on that. I think that's incredibly value, especially when I'm working with couples. So that might be the case for someone who maybe they're spending some of their time working for a group practice and maybe they're spending some of their time doing their own private practice, kind of like Mark started off with. I think that plays into it as well as you have to know what you're capable of, but there's also some reality to that as well of whatever your situation is.
One other thing too, in terms of thinking about money, is the amount of support it takes to then do the FaceTime direct hours. So whatever your billable hours are and the rate that you set for those needs to pay you for the rest of the time that's all of your unbillable time. Ann and I were talking about, I guess a month or so ago, about the trade-offs of like adding a plus one to your practice, right? So like an additional clinician and stuff. And the thing I kind of reflected back was, you know, the time investment it's going to take to then support them isn't necessarily going to free you up. So if the goal is to free up more time, that's maybe not the best way to do it. Looking at rates and looking at your different types of income is probably going to be more flexible in terms of opening that up. But yeah, that one of the clinicians in our area years ago, this was one of the earlier networking events I got to go to before the pandemic shut everything down for a while. He's like, that time that I was like, it's okay to be profitable in private practice because that's where you then spend your profits on your self-care and get to be a functional human being. It allows you to not show up and have the same kind of financial stress that a lot of my clients certainly deal with on a regular basis. So, you know, that ability to have self-care and to like, you know, invest in your training and other things and just caring for yourself and learning what those skills are, or, you know, paying a health coach to be like, hey, I mainly have like 40 hours of training and all the stuff you have a master's degree in. To which back somebody like me is going to say, and it's great because then you can kind of hold me accountable for applying the stuff that I tell all my clients and never ever actually tend to do for myself. You know, like these kind of things are all where that extra money goes to. So with that, like let's do some Q&A. I guess if people want to kind of like raise your hand and I guess we can see, I don't know if Joe's got it set up to where we can like enable somebody's camera to pop on and ask a question.
As a therapist, I can tell you from experience that having the right EHR is an absolute lifeline. I recommend using Therapy Notes. They make billing, scheduling, note-taking, telehealth, and e-prescribe incredibly easy. Best of all, they offer live telephone support that's available 7 days a week. You don't have to take my word for it. Do your own research and see for yourself. Therapy Notes is the #1 highest rated EHR system available today, with a 4.9 out of 5 stars on trustpilot.com and on Google. All you have to do is click the link below or type promo code Joe on their website over at therapynotes.com and receive a special 2-month trial absolutely free. Again, that's therapynotes.com and use promo code Joe on the website. If you're coming from another EHR, Therapy Notes will also import your demographic data quick and easy at no cost, so you can get started right away. Trust me, don't waste any more of your time and try Therapy Notes. Just use promo code Joe at checkout. Yeah, we'll jump into the Q&A. I want to make sure we go through these slides first, and then we'll do the Q&A portion of it. So a lot of our panel here have talked about next level practice. We just want to make sure that you know what that is, and we're just going to share a little bit about that and then dive into the Q&A. So make sure you put your questions in the chat or virtually raise your hand if you want to be unmuted and ask your question. But if you're at that phase of starting a solo practice or you have a solo practice and want support, maybe feel a little confused, this next level practice is specifically for people that are starting and growing a solo practice. So Next Level Practice is a program. It's a membership community, meaning you pay $99 a month, and it's indefinite, like Netflix, where you're just paying that until it stops making sense for you or you level up into something else. And so we have small groups where people meet each other. They're able to talk through all sorts of questions to know exactly what those next steps are. The idea is that these small groups would be people that are around your same phase of practice, have similar goals as you. Dana, our accountability coach, is the one that runs those small groups to keep things moving along, so that you can shortcut and find these hacks and not be just so confused. Even in the chat, a number of people were saying how they want to leave their agency jobs, but like they're not sure where to start. That's one thing that the small groups really help with. You get an accountability partner, and so we connect you with an accountability partner that you can check in with, and it's just you and that person, and you figure out when you want to meet. We have monthly Ask the Experts, so we brought in people like Dr. Julie Schwartz-Gottman, experts on highly sensitive people, operational tools, profit first, marketing, all the different things that it takes. And we find experts that would cost $500 to $1,000 to just have their time for an hour. And we bring them in, and we oftentimes buy their books and give those to you as a way to just say, let's build our knowledge quickly and find those hacks to help you launch quickly. We have weekly live trainings and Q&As with myself and other consultants. And so we heard a reference of What's Working, where we get together and break you up into small groups and say, all right, talk marketing, talk websites. We have different themes based on the people that are there and what they want to get out of it. Then we come back together and say, what are the best things you just heard in those small groups, so that as a community, we can be sharing these ideas quickly with each other, to again, really try to shortcut that system. We also have over 30 courses in our library of recordings that you can do at your pace. Most people will do one or two of those a month, to just build that knowledge set. And then also you get access to our online community, which is Circle. That it's like Facebook groups meets a e-learning platform. So all of the different things are in there in regards to just all the courses, all the discussions, all the content. So in your first 6 months, typically the first month, so you'll come to our first Ask the Expert and what's working, and we'll have our weekly meetings as well. And then we'll solidify your plan in your small groups or in what's working or in other areas. We'll really work through like, what are those next steps? And then we usually see, depending on the pace of people, somewhere in the 4 to 9 months, people are as full as they want to be. It depends on the person, but really less than a year, people are as full as they want to be. They're really kicking it. And I'd say that 6 months, that's why we offer group practice launch every 6 months, is oftentimes people that join right now in 6 months are saying, I'm ready for a group practice. We want to be able to help them. So Brian Cooper, who's one of the people here, I won't read all that he said. He's already said quite a bit in regards to supporting Next Level Practice. But one of the things that he said is that Next Level Practice really provides the needed community and accountability to keep moving forward. And it helped him grow a strong practice. And what's great about Next Level Practice is if you're like Brian, you have this as a side gig that you want to grow full time, that's great. If you have a full time solo practice and you want to keep leveling up, that's great. We have supports all along that practice journey for you. And so for me, when I look at specifically Next Level Practice, we have helped over 600 therapists to start their private practice through Next Level Practice. This is our 20th cohort. So we've had 20 cohorts that we have helped start practices. With overall, we've helped over 2,000 private practice owners. We have a proven process. We've won a bunch of awards, and our folks have collected over $200 million in sales. So we're not new to the game. We started this in 2012. I started the podcast 2013. We just passed the 10-year mark in the 850th episode. We've picked up some skills along the way, and we're stronger in community. It's not just me. It's not just Andrew. It's not just Dana. We all work better in community to share what's working. So you can do this on your own. You can, spend time evaluating, picking the right approaches. You can be wondering if you're doing it right. Maybe feel a little isolated. Be in Facebook groups where everybody's giving all this information, but it's like not really helping shortcut the system. Or you can join Next Level Practice and speed up your progress. We have weekly trainings, Q&As, the small groups, the Circle community. You also get a free logo, our paperwork packet. It's usually $200, and we have monthly giveaways as well. So think about, for every hour of your time that you're spending evaluating, wondering if you're doing things right, if you're actually making progress or not, or if you're working with experts and even people like this that are in our community that are saying, here's how I did it. Let me just share that with you. Then you don't have to wonder if you're doing it right. I do want to briefly show you our Circle community, and then we're going to get to that Q&A. So once you're in the Circle, in Next Level Practice, you'll start here. We have just under 200 members here in Next Level Practice. You'll do your welcome there and introductions. Here's where we have our discussions and announcements. Then we have our weekly events in here. We also have it as a Google Calendar, a text opt-in, a weekly email, so that you would never miss any of our events we're putting on. We have our small group information, tech questions. And so these are just some of the courses. And when you drill into here, there's all sorts of other things that are in here. So for example, blogging, social media, courses on SEO, on how to get 8 weeks of work done in 1 week, specifically business development, lifestyle, networking, any exclusive deals that we have, all of our Ask the Expert recordings, you get that as well. So if we even just look into like our discussion and announcements, there are frequently different questions in here about annual versus monthly payments, diet specialists in your practice, license, people asking state specific questions, happy Friday, what's, you want to be on my podcast. So all sorts of discussions going on in there that will help you continue to level up. And now we're going to jump into questions. Andrew, do you want to facilitate this, or do you want me to jump in and read them to the panel? Do you have a preference?
Either one's fine. I think there was, if I scroll back through the chat, it looks like, is it Denisa? I hope I'm pronouncing that right. What is the most efficient way to consistently bring in your set amount of clients? For me, about 10 per week. So it sounds like a marketing question, and also kind of wanting to, one directed at Nadine about how to grow the couples work around Gottman and stuff. I don't do Gottman, but I just know it's a kind of like EMDR, it's very popular at the moment and kind of sells itself. So if you are a Gottman trained clinician, that often provides its own work. But in terms of there's some really helpful directory kind of stuff. One of the other, I think Allison Puryear, who's another Asheville local kind of coach consultant, she does like some talk about picking the right couple areas. I think there used to be one in like the old Teachable. I don't know, Dana maybe knows if it's still there, but she was talking about, about 10 different categories of like marketing strategies and pick the 3 that like resonate with you the most. So if it happens to be directory stuff, work with that. For myself, directories seem to work relatively well for bringing traffic in. Meet some other local clinicians. My recommendation is to find people that complement your work. So I don't work with kids or adolescents. So finding other clinicians that do that work, and then other couples and family therapists and things like that. There's kind of a mutual back and forth that'll happen kind of once you start meeting those other people, just for some basics. And I don't want to be the one speaking. So Nadine, how do you recommend growing your Gottman clientele specifically?
Yeah, sure. So for you, like you said, for Gottman, it is extremely well known. So a lot of people do seek it out. So they find me on the Gottman referral network because I do have a like my profile up on there. So they do find me there. Also in terms of that, aside from that, everything that I have in regard to my website and any blog posts I put out, anything on they also find me very much on Google. So those seem to, the first question I ask when anyone calls me is always, how did we get connected? How did you find me? That is question number 1. And so right off the bat, the 2 big ways they find me are Gottman Referral Network or Google, my Google profile. And Google has done a lot of new things where you can put in almost like a little mini blog in there. So now what I do is everything I put in there is all Gottman, keywords. Anything referring to couples therapy, relationships, marriage therapy, are you on the brink of divorce, anything like that, so that I come up and I put in various towns with, in the state because I do virtual. So therefore, and I also put in the more affluent towns because I'm private pay. So I want to resonate with the people who I know can afford my fee. And so that's how they're finding me. And, so that's how, when they come in and I ask, automatically, those are the 2 big ways. The other way is I'm starting to get more and more referrals because as I'm getting people who exit therapy, the emails that are coming in from my clients are, you saved my marriage. Like that's everything that they're saying, right? So they are my best cheerleaders. They're the ones who are going out and saying whatever they're saying to not just their friends, but the local chiropractor in the area. I'm friends with her. She just said to me, a client of mine just talked about you, said how much she loves you. So that's how now everything's starting to get out. So the more that happens, the more people are calling me and saying, I was referred to you. Can we set up an appointment? So those are my top 3.
Yeah. And Nadine, if I can tag on to that, I agree with you. The Gottman Referral Network, and this goes back to your numbers a little bit as well. The Gottman Referral Network, I think, was like $500 to have my name put on it. But the great thing about it, I've gotten 3 or 4 couples off of it from the past 6 months, which is not a huge volume of couples, but they have been my avatar. They have been the exact match. And so they are couples that have stayed with me. So, and they are in the process. They know what they're coming in for. They're, that buy-in is already there. And so, yes, it's about getting clients, but it's also about getting clients that you're the right match, they're the right match, so that they will stay with you rather than trying week after week. How do I go find a new person? How do I find a new person? And then also, as you were saying, that the referrals, because there are not a tremendous number of Gottman therapists, and I think there were only maybe just a few, 2 or 3 level 3 trained therapists in my areas. And not all clients know enough about Gottman to really, one, know what it is, or two, to know the difference between a level 1, level 2, level 3, and then the additional training, so the certification track and all of that. But other therapists do. And so
That's right.
networking with other solo practice therapists who, especially the ones who specialize in individuals, often have a person that they need to refer out for couples. And I have gotten, between the Gottman Referral Network and other therapists, I get a tremendous number of people calling and saying, so and so said you're the person that I need to call. You know, and again, back to the numbers, that doesn't cost very much to do that. It's about making a phone call or having coffee or something like that with these other practitioners. But again, it also brings you clients that you tend to match with well and that you retain. And so it takes off that pressure of, I need to go find clients every week. If you're matching with your clients, then your books will stay consistently full at a little bit higher rate with it. Brian's nodding his head. Yay. Thank you, Brian. So,
Mark and Brian, what are your marketing secrets?
It's kind of similar, what Ann and Nadine were saying, because I'm definitely an individual therapist. So I use EMDRIA, EMDR International Association. So I pay the yearly fee, when to stay certified and a consultant. And then, I maybe get like 2 or 3 of those a year. But again, it's a good match. People, if they're on the EMDR site, like they're already steps ahead of a lot of people just in their general knowledge. And, that creates a great referral. And then I think there was one person from that who has sent me probably 3 or 4, like a client. Like, oh, so-and-so referred me. And I'm just like, I keep hearing my client's name over and over, sent me 3 or 4 people. And then kind of going back to what you were saying, Anne, as well, is because I am not a couples therapist. And I'm like, I know Brian. Please go see him. Like, he loves doing this. He's good at it. And like, I just sent one of my recent clients over, to be seen with, their significant other. And I'm hearing, nothing but good things, and then there's trust built there. And then they want to start, again, it's just like that. Once it gets moving, it's almost like this motion you can't stop. And it's a motion, that we don't want to stop.
I agree with Mark. I'm kind of an old school networker. So I love networking with complementing, not only therapists, complementing colleagues. So I network with Mark because Mark does men's issues. I don't do as much with men's issues. So not only when I have a couple where the male partner might want to see someone, when I have other therapists who are looking for a male therapist or a male issues therapist, and they come to me because I'm a male, I get to pass them on to Mark. And it just really works well. I work with other colleagues who have a yoga practice because I do marriage counseling, and most of the marriage decisions are made in some ways by the woman. So creating a network with them, I'm more of the old school kind of networking person where if I can connect with someone and build trust, it goes a long, long way in the long run. It's kind of one of those longer plays, but it works out almost better in the long run because not only do I get more clients from the people I've connected with, their connections all of a sudden then talk about me. So they'll connect me with another friend of theirs. And it kind of like Mark said, it kind of the circle completes itself.
So one of the other questions, and Joe and I kind of chimed in while people were chatting, was do you need a business license for an online practice? And then if you plan on providing across, I don't know if Brittany, you were talking about providing within the state of California, within the whole state as a telehealth-based practice, or across state lines. I'm a telehealth only practice, or well, mostly telehealth. I may go back to seeing some people in person finally for the first time in a couple of years, but the North Carolina Counseling Board, for example, requires us to all have a professional corporation, whether it's a PLLC or a professional S corp, I guess it would be the equivalent. But just having a business established would be kind of the smartest thing to do and wisest anyway. There are generally some like the pros far outweigh the cons, and it kind of insulates you a bit in terms of liability and other things, and it also opens you up for like business accounts and um, separate tax ID number, so your social security is not getting sent out on every super bill and these other kind of things. And in terms of like practicing across state lines, like one of the cool things from the pandemic has been a real push for allowing telehealth and getting that recognized like interstate wise. So like for example, I have a client that is a student and so went down to Florida and was like, hey, can you see me in Florida? I was like, I don't know, let me check. And so for $49, which is the cost of a registered agent fee annually, I now have a telehealth only for Florida license and stuff. So in general, yes, you would want to like check with your state licensing board, but just in general, even if it's not required, I would certainly encourage you to like set up an LLC or some kind of S corp or other thing like that. Cheryl was asking about insurance paneling. If you are transferring from being paneled as part of a group to that of a solo practitioner, there's kind of a couple, basically two big steps with insurance. So there's the credentialing process, which is we're going to verify that your license counts and that you really are a like valid healthcare provider. And then there's that goes with your NPI one, which is the rendering thing, and that's a whole other like big long discussion about stuff. And then there's the billing NPI, which is where the contracting and paneling goes. So your group is going to list your NPI one that's credentialed under the group NPI two. So that's where the paneling is. You can basically get paneled with any individual tax number, but basically just the simplest way to put it is for each tax ID number you're doing work under is where you're going to need to have a separate contract. So for example, I could set up a contract for just myself and then could set one up like I currently have for my business. But yes, in general, you're going to have to like set up a new contract for your solo stuff. But because you're already credentialed, that's good because you are probably on you may be on a panel that's closed, so not taking new providers because you're already part of that group, and you can just transfer that credentialing to a new contract for yourself. Um, if that answers your question, let me know. If you still have some additional things, kind of drop it in. Um, in terms of like website developers, that's a whole other thing. Um, I built my own. I've been in the process of not doing my own update and stuff, but Joe I know knows quite a few people, so I'll let him speak to that.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of options. I think first figuring out, do you want to own the website, like owning a car outright, or do you want to lease a website? And so with like a Brighter Vision, that's a great lease option where, it's $59 a month that covers all of your different things like, your IT support, your hosting, the design, all of that. They have a deal going on that we're going to put in our daily digest, assuming we get that to work. Uh, but at the end of it, if you want to like buy that website out, you're still going to be paying for that. So I think it's like $1,500 or something to pull your website off of Brighter Vision. So then you've paid for it for the lease, and then you pay for it again. So it's a great startup one, but there's pros and cons to that. Then having someone build a website for you, a pretty solid website is going to be $1,500 to $2,000 for a really good looking website. I wouldn't spend more than that on a website. So we now have an in-house IT team that is doing websites and SEO. So you can just email Jean. He's our head of IT. It's just IT@practiceofthepractice.com. He'll meet with you, talk with you. If it's a really simple website, he'll just give you a really basic quote for it. And if it's not a fit, that's cool too.
I'm a kind of structured process person, so I'll just chime in real quick and say, yeah, like $1 to $2 grand is probably a good price range to get a quality website that the code's going to be clean and it works well. And if somebody else needs to come in and fix it, where stuff gets expensive is when you start paying for like SEO, which is search engine optimization, and getting listed. And so you're showing up closer to that first ranking search results in Google. And that's where, think of that like an advertising budget. So the structure of the website is going to be one price of things, and then how well it ranks and performs and stuff for Google to please their computer algorithms and all the stuff that's eventually going to take over the world, like ChatGPT, kind of thing. So, all right, any other questions or any other panelist stuff that people want to add in?
Well, Nadine, Anne, Mark, Brian, Andrew, thank you so much for hanging out today. One thing we didn't mention is that Andrew is one of our consultants. And so if you're interested in working with him, I would say if you're a growing solo practice and looking to build your systems, if you want to move into group practice or get some of those nuts and bolts, he's so good with systems. So if you do want to work with him individually, you can check out more about him at practiceofthepractice.com/apply. Thanks, everybody. We will talk to you soon. Thanks for leading this, Andrew. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with us today and going through this Level Up Week training. Again, don't forget to sign up for Level Up Week. It's starting in just a little bit here, September 18th through 21st. We are going to have so many great trainings on starting a private practice, growing a group practice, and even starting a group practice, as well as passive income and so many other things that are really going to help you level up quickly. It is an intense week of trainings to help you level up quickly. You can sign up for that over at practiceofthepractice.com/level up. And we could not do this show without our amazing sponsors. Sponsors like Therapy Notes. Therapy Notes is the best electronic health records out there. You can sign up over at therapynotes.com. Use promo code Joe at checkout to get 2 months totally free. And thank you so much for letting me into your ears and into your brain. Have an amazing day. I'll talk to you soon. Special thanks to the band Silence is Sexy for that intro music, and this podcast is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regard to the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the host, the producers, the publishers, or guests are rendering legal, accounting, clinical, or other professional information. If you want a professional, you should find one.